While elections in the UK are still a few weeks away, the incoming poll results for the recently concluded European Parliament elections has solidified the rise of the far right across several countries that are part of the 27-member bloc. At the top of the list, the French President Emanuel Macron dissolved his country's parliament and called for snap elections. Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party trounced Macron's Renaissance, winning more than 31% of the vote. Le Pen's party won more than double what Macron could muster. Two phases of the French parliamentary elections will be held on June 30th and the 7th of July. In Italy, Giorgia Meloni and her far-right Brothers of Italy party is forecast to more than double its seats in the European Parliament since the last election, and that will hand her new power to influence policy in the EU. The right wing also strengthened its majority in the European Parliament with victories in Austria, Greece, Poland and in Spain. And for the very latest on this, we're now being joined by John Bever from UK. And John, let's begin by talking about the European Parliament elections where the far right seems to have swept. What are we attributing this wave of the far right to be in Europe?
Yeah, there's certainly, as you say, we seem to have had this shift to the right. Some countries, the centre ground still being maintained, but that list that you said there, countries such as Germany, Austria and Italy, all having a shift to the right when it comes to the European elections, and of course France most dramatically as well because of the impact that's now having on their domestic politics with this snap election being announced. As to why, well, there are some who will say it comes down to things like migration, which traditionally the right wing have always had a tougher stance on. So some people say that we have voters wanting solutions and drastic solutions, so they are looking to the right to try and solve the problem of migration that they say. Others saying that the cost of living crisis has caused many problems for people in places like France, so they are just looking for an alternative to what is currently being offered up. So we have all these different views as to why, but what we are very sure on is that it has happened in many of the leading European countries. So it is something that the European Parliament will now, with this new makeup, we'll need to see what the sort of policies are coming out of there. And of course, in these countries as well, we have this election about to take place in France. In Austria as well, we're expecting parliamentary elections in the autumn, and the far-right party there is saying that they are very confident that they are going to claim domestic control after these successes in the European elections.
Right, and John, let's go back to the UK where Rishi Sunak, polls suggest, may lose his own seat, a major embarrassment for him and certainly a death knell for the Conservatives in what we're seeing from, poll after poll about their prediction for the elections.
Absolutely, and Rishi Sunak's seat, Richmond and Northallerton up in northern England, he's got a majority at the moment of 27,000. So the fact that we're even discussing that he might lose his seat would be a huge upset. 27,000 as a majority, just for some context, is an absolutely enormous majority. We are looking at a bad night for the Conservatives on election night if they're losing seats with a majority of 10,000. So if we've had that swing away from the Conservatives, seats of around 10,000 majority, that would be bad news. And here we are talking potentially about Rishi Sunak losing his seat with 27,000. I have to say, though, there are a lot of people who don't think it's going to happen, that they think that this poll is an outlier. When we actually look at a poll of polls in terms of the popularity of the parties, not a huge amount has changed since the election was announced 3 weeks ago. Labour with a huge lead, 44% of people saying they would vote for Labour tomorrow if a general election was held tomorrow. The Conservatives down on 22%, so more than 20% behind everyone else on 13% and under. What's interesting though as well is that the right here in the UK expected to do quite well. We have the Reform Party, that's further right than the Conservatives, and they're expected to take some votes off the Conservatives, which would be bad news for them. So Labour hoping to gain because of this rise of a second right-wing party. So interesting to see how these shifts to the right are happening across Europe. But here in the UK, that shift to the right might just divide the vote and mean that the more left-wing Labour Party end up in power. But certainly the politicians still out trying to get every vote they can, but things looking very bad for the ruling Conservatives.
Right, and so now back on the campaign trail. John, thanks very much indeed for joining us with the very latest there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.